mean, I talked to Sam like regularly throughout house arrest, and they never approached him. They never gave him a plea deal. It was like, I don't even think I would take one. I think Sam genuinely doesn't feel he meant to harm customers. So in that way, in his mind, he doesn't feel he's guilty, even though, I mean, obviously with the evidence, it's like, obviously you committed crimes. I'm tempted to believe him.
You have to admit, right? God, I'm really not that charismatic. I'm not a great public speaker. And he came up with a way to make it work for him. I mean, you have to hand that to him, right?
He's smart. He's smart. He knows how to play.
So Sam Bankman-Fried, like I said, I've done a couple of videos on him. I do have a cursory understanding of the case.
Mm-hmm.
It is kind of convoluted as a result, because of the, oh, this was a trading company. This was our multiple tokens. And so it seems confusing to me.
It does. I get it. Like the first time I interviewed Sam, I wasn't expecting him to say yes, and I had no idea what I was asking him or talking about. I didn't even know Alameda versus FTX. I was very confused as well. So I get it. I get it.
Right. Like I said, a basic understanding. What I do know is what a Ponzi scheme is.
Oh.
And which to me in general, and every time I say something like this, I always get bombarded in the comment section. But listen, the whole crypto thing seems like a Ponzi scheme to me. It's just not. It's like buying. When guys will compare. No, it's just like buying stock in a company. I'm like, no, it's not. So I'm like, no. And then they try and explain it, and I'm like, they could still sell the factories. They could still sell the company, the cars. Right. So,
no, I'm not a crypto enthusiast. I mean, like I own a bunch of crypto, but I got into it without my own doing. I first got into crypto because a relative of mine was Bitcoin mining, but I kind of still think about it sometimes, and I'm like, it's kind of just bullshit.
right.
So I'm on the same boat.
But listen, what's even worse is the NFTs.
Such bullshit.
But listen, I had a guy who sat down and really desperately tried to explain the difference between crypto and Bitcoin. And God bless him. He genuinely he really thinks I'm smarter than I am. I mean, he almost had to break out like blocks and the crowns and the whole thing and draw pictures. And I was like, listen, bro, I'm sorry.
Completely wasted on you.
Yeah. But
oh my God.
Sam Bankman-Fried, I do have some questions though, because and I mentioned this to Tyler, because I said I'm super interested, because one, he was telling me you need to study up. I was like, I kind of know the basics. I don't think reading too much more about it's going to help me much. Yeah. But what I was wondering, and I don't know if you know this, and is that okay? So SBF went to college, and then supposedly he started doing some kind of trading.
The Bitcoin arbitrage, yes.
Yeah, thank you. And made a bunch of money.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is that's what's said, but is that true?
That's the story that Sam gave me. I mean, he went to MIT, then he went off to work at Jane Street Capital, which is apparently a quant trading firm. And then he decided he wanted to go try starting his own thing. And he discovered crypto and Bitcoin. And he saw that there was some discrepancy in the price between Bitcoin in America and Bitcoin in Japan. So he did some arbitrage trade and apparently was making over $1 million a day doing that. And that is the story that he's told me. It's the story he tells the press. And it's something that didn't come up in court at all as potentially a lie that they've sort of cracked. So right. I'm tempted to believe him, but I know some people are very skeptical of that story, but I haven't personally seen like evidence otherwise.
I mean, it just seems like why wouldn't you, since the whole, altruism thing is BS, like I listen, talk about a guy playing up his strengths. You have to admit, right? Like if you were like, God, I'm really not that charismatic. I'm not a great public speaker. I'm a little chunky. I'm a little bit geeky. How can I make this work for me? And he came up with a way to make it work for him. I mean, you have to hand that to him, right?
He's smart. He's smart. He knows how to play. I mean, it's funny because like I think that Sam really does sort of have this obsession with EA though. Like he talks about it all the time, even though like everything's over. Like he has nothing. He has Like the whole game is stopped for him. But he really does talk about it in every single conversation. It's like an obsession for him. So I think he does believe in it, but I think it's more that he just thinks that he's the smartest guy in the room. He thinks that he's best equipped to handle everyone else's money. He
Can't believe you just said that. I was actually thinking, and then one of the things I've said is, you know, the problem with thinking you're the smartest guy in the room and not actually being the smartest guy in the room is, it really is a lot of people's downfall where he
it's
just thinks, well, I'll just spin it and
yeah,
spin it and
yeah.
spin it. But if you're also talking to someone who's sharp, then that's not going to work.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
So so first, let me mention this is that when did you first talk to, well, how did you get into it? Tell me how you got into it. I know I just
Okay.
watched a video, but
I mean, so I just started a YouTube channel a year ago, and the only reason I started it was because I lost a lot of my money to another collapsed crypto company called Celsius. So I lost like I think it was close at the time I deposited it was like over 200K. So it was a lot it was a lot for me. So I was going through a spiral of depression, just sitting around in bed. I was also going through a breakup at the time. So I was just like, I need to start doing things. So I started a little YouTube channel, started posting on Twitter. And I just was posting about, first of all, my losses. And that video did better than I expected. And there were other people who had just lost money to Celsius. And they were like, what's happening with the bankruptcy? So I began posting updates, just what's going on with the Celsius network bankruptcy. Employees inside of the company began watching my videos, I guess, and started sending me leaked information, like leaked audio files of internal all hands meetings. So I started posting those on my Twitter and my YouTube channel. And Sam Bankman-Fried started following me the day that I posted my first leaked information bit. So that was September 2022. At the time, Sam was still like the king of crypto. Everyone thought he was like the godsend. And so I thought he was just a big shot. And I just messaged him like, hey, thanks for the follow. So we chatted very briefly that day in September 2022. Then a couple months later, FTX goes down. And I just think like, okay, I still have that guy's contact. We've messaged before. And I was like, this is a long shot. This guy's not going to respond to me. And he shouldn't respond. People in his position should not be talking to the press after their company just collapsed and
yeah.
they're potentially going to get indicted. But I messaged him saying like, hey, obviously there's a lot about FTX in the news right now. Would you be willing to chat with me and tell me your side of the story? And a couple days later, he gets back to me at midnight. I was on a date at drinks, so I was a little bit drunk. And he messages me at midnight saying, Heart, happy to chat, free for the next hour or so for what it's worth. And I was on a date, ran home. I was like, I can't reschedule with this guy. So I ran home drunk and hopped on the phone with him. And that was our first interview. Turned into a series of, I had two phone interviews with him, and then he was extradited from the Bahamas to the United States, released on a $250 million bond to his
Right.
parents' house. And that night that he got released onto house arrest, he texted me, hey, finally back online. So I took my shot again and I asked, are you allowed visitors? And he said, yes, happy to see you. So that started off a series of in person interviews.
Had you ever done, what is your background? Like, had you ever done anything like this before?
Nothing remotely close to this. I mean, I went to college. Uh, I I started college as an architecture major and I switched to communications simply because I'm lazy. I had no desire to do anything in like comm or
Right.
journalism or anything like that. It's just an easy major. So I guess I have somewhat background in communications, but yeah, after college I didn't do anything remotely in this realm. I never had aspirations to even like be a YouTuber or a Twitter person. So this was just it all just kind of happened.
Yeah.
But it's been fun.
Just say, I hear you. I started off in business, and then I got a C. I get a C. I got a C in accounting too, and I was like, yeah, this isn't
I
gonna
can't do
happen.
this.
I'm
Did you switch?
never gonna do. I switched
You
it to
dropped
fine
out.
arts. It was a
Oh,
breeze.
see, I did the same thing. I did the same thing. I was like, this is an MRS degree. Like, I'm just looking for a man at this point.
Um, so okay, so what? All right, so what were you doing when this whole thing started off? Like, what was your job?
So after college, I never worked a full-time 9 to 5 job. I just made a bunch of stupid online stores. Like I made a bunch of, it's stupid. It's like kind of scammy, like those people on YouTube who are selling their courses. I don't sell courses. I'm not scamming anyone. But I met a bunch of people when I traveled after college. I met a bunch of people who were digital nomads and they taught me how to like set up online like print on demand stores. So I set up tens of them. And it's basically just like making silly designs, slapping them on items like t-shirts or mugs, and people can buy them and they get printed automatically onto the item and sent to the customer. So I'm not actually like holding inventory. So anyway, I have a bunch of those kinds of stores, so it still makes me passive income in the background, and I haven't logged into them in years. So that's basically been my job. Like I haven't really been doing much of anything. So I
Well,
certainly had the time on my hands.
you need to attach some of those to your YouTube channel.
I know I haven't. Well, because a lot of the stores are just really cringy. There's some of them are catered to like teenage girls, and they're just kind of like cringy, flowery, stupid designs. And I'm like, I don't want anyone to see these that I made these. This is embarrassing. So I don't attach them.
Okay, so you you connected with SBF.
Yes.
Did you go there or did you just talk to him? Did you actually?
Um, the first two times I spoke with him, we just had phone calls. That was before he was imprisoned in the Bahamas and extradited. So two phone calls. Then when he got put onto house arrest at his parents' house, I was like, "Are you allowed visitors?" He says yes. So I visited him right after Christmas. I told him like, "Hey, I'm gonna be in San Francisco." He lives in Stanford because I was visiting my sister's family in San Francisco. So I was like, "Can I come visit you?"
Right.
Said yes. So I went over to his house for the first time on December 27th.
Okay. And you recorded it?
Um, I recorded some of our conversations. I don't remember which dates I recorded, but yeah, I haven't released much of them. I also didn't want to get too entrenched in the actual trial, and I actually did get I was scared of that happening, and I actually did get contacted by the DOJ a couple weeks before his trial. The prosecutors on the case were requesting my records, so I had to lawyer up around that time. Um,
Nice.
yeah, that was scary. Wasn't expecting to ever talk to the DOJ. But yeah, so I haven't released much of those conversations, but I did visit him multiple times over his house arrest.
Right. Well, what were the conversations? I mean,
Um,
if you don't want to be specific, I get it, but in general.
I can talk about it. Like the first time I visited him was right after he'd gotten out of prison in the Bahamas, and he's like a relatively he's had a pretty charmed life, and he seemed very shaken by his experience being in prison in the Bahamas, but less so because he was like, okay, the conditions were disgusting, but that's something I could get used to. He just really struggled with not having internet or any contact with the outside world, so he was like going crazy after that. So that our first conversations kind of revolved around how he was like basically going mad in the Bahamas, and I think a lot of our conversations largely obviously revolved around the case and the charges against him, but also just kind of him as a person. And obviously, a lot of people don't want to be remotely sympathetic or hear anything that's humanizing about Sam, but we did talk a lot about his mental health. I mean, he's like a pretty depressed guy, always has been. He uses Sam patches for his depression. Yeah, like has ADHD, depression, etc. So we've talked a lot about his mental health and basically even just like the prospect of him going to jail for the rest of or prison for the rest of his life. So we've talked about quite a bit. And I feel like I just got to know him on a personal level, like what he was like growing up and as a kid and all that personal stuff.
Well, I think that and it's funny because I actually talked to I interviewed an FBI, a retired FBI agent the
Oh,
other day, and and of course I've met a bunch of guys that were locked up for various types of schemes, Ponzi schemes, business opportunity schemes, just you know bank fraud schemes, credit cards, you name it. I can go on and on, but the point is that what I tend to notice is that the majority of the time, and I mean like not like 80%, like 98% of the time, Ponzi scheme guys, they never ended up wanting it to be a Ponzi scheme. Like I've known guys that they started a company, they ran it for 5 years or even 10 years, and then something goes wrong.
yeah.
And instead of saying, man, this was a mistake, like I don't want to have to report this to my
Yes.
investors. So I'm going to fudge the numbers a little bit, but I'll make it up next quarter. So next
Yes.
quarter you don't. So what happens is then because of that, you now make a little bit more risky investments, and you have another bad quarter, and now you're
Yes.
really in the hole. And then you go, well, I can't tell them now.
Yeah.
It didn't make it. So I'm going to have to fudge it a little bit, but I need to borrow more money. So now I'm
Yes.
lying to get more money. Listen, within a year, it's a full blown Ponzi scheme. There's no
Yes.
way to get out of it.
Yeah.
And And they always say, "Oh, this guy's a con man." He didn't. They typically didn't start off that way. It's situational. It happened, and now they're just desperately trying to get out of it. And then a lot of people, you would think that once they realize, I can't fix this, I need to salvage as much as I can for the benefit of my investors. That's not what they think. What they then think is, how long can I just hold off the inevitable? And
Yes.
and I feel like maybe that's what he thought, or he was still in
Yeah.
that mindset of, I can pull this off.
That honestly sounds a lot like what happened. I mean, it sounded like there were issues. I don't know, starting, I guess it depends when you want to start calling them issues, but it sounds like a lot of it started in like summer last year. And I think that he basically thought that he'd be able to make all the money back. And I don't think his intent from the get go of starting FTX was ever with, like, I don't think he set out to just take a bunch of customer funds and buy yachts or anything like that. I mean,
Right.
in the first place, he's not necessarily someone who even enjoys like yachts and material things. Granted, he did have a $35 million penthouse in the Bahamas, but he's not someone who has like Rolexes and yachts and stuff like that. So I don't think his goal really was to set out to just enrich himself so that he could buy a bunch of stuff. Obviously the money, like obviously $8.6 billion were used, so I'm not like vouching for the guy, but I really don't think it started that way. And it does feel like there were issues at some point. He started using FTX customer funds to sort of cover up issues, but thought that, hey, we're going to get more investor funding. It's been so easy. People were throwing billions of dollars at him, and he's like in his 20s. I think he was just thought that everything was going to work out. I don't think he even saw the possibility of this happening. Like, I think that he was just so overconfident that he just didn't even think this would happen.
Well, there's also the problem of like Binance, like how detrimental was um the rift or the issue with Binance, like
Oh, Binance? Yes.
Binance. I'm sorry. Oh my God,
It's okay.
people are gonna
Crypto,
kill me.
fuck crypto.
I mean, how bad was that?
The issue, it sounded like, so Binance was actually one of the first investors in FTX. And I
Right.
think they like wanted to help them out and see them do well. But then FTX started becoming an actual real competitor to Binance. So it sounded like they started to have a rockier and more competitive relationship as time went on. And yeah, they started just doing sort of making underhanded comments about each other, sort of underhandedly talking crap about, I don't know, can we curse in this?
Yeah. Was it
Okay.
Twitter? Didn't I forget that the CEO of and it's Binex?
Binance.
Binance. Damn it.
Binance. Yeah.
Binance.
Close
So
enough. People know.
like the CEO of Binance, like he made some comment on, was it Twitter or something like that, and which made people think something's off
Yes,
with
yes. So they had had some ongoing little rivalry. Sam had made some negative comments about the Binance CEO, sort of making fun of the fact that like Binance, it doesn't make clear where they're actually running from, and there are maybe some shady things about Binance. So I think Sam commented like, "Hey, is CZ, the founder of Binance, is he even allowed into the United States? Is he allowed into Washington D.C.?" Kind of just making snide comments about Binance. So ultimately, like within a month or so, then obviously FTX was on rocky waters, and the Binance CEO already had a bunch of FTT tokens from their prior business dealings, and just he said that like, okay, from what we've heard about FTT, we're going to be selling our holdings of FTT, which I think was about $500 million or so. But that obviously like it created a lot of fear in the market. And little did we know, FTX was basically a house of cards built on FTT tokens. So that Binance's CEO's tweet kind of made people start selling FTT and also pulling out of FTX, pulling their funds out. So some people would call it a run on the bank, although FTX was not a bank. But we can, I guess,
right.
use that phrasing for this. But yeah, it basically just toppled the whole company.
So, um, and obviously then obviously the American one went under, right? So then, even though he was insisting that we're good,
Well,
he was
so
trying to.
Sam still to this day, I mean, I haven't talked to him since he's been put into jail, but he very consistently said that FTX US was completely solvent, never touched. It was the international exchange, apparently, where all the problems were. So he still stands by that, but he was actually banned in an, I think they're called in limine motions or whatever, but he was banned for bringing that up at trials. So that actually, he wasn't able to argue that point, but he still stands by and like will stake his life on saying that FTX US is still completely solvent, but it was thrown into bankruptcy without his permission, basically.
Yeah, well, yeah, we'll get to that. But I mean, let's face it. If he was able to sell all the tokens right now, there's no way people are getting back a dollar on their dollar.
Yeah, I mean,
So
so the FTT token was specifically for FTX International. FTX US apparently had no dealings with FTT since it's technically considered a security. So they were apparently, according to Sam, and who believes, a lot of people don't believe Sam in the first place, but I'll just relay that he says that they were entirely separate entities. FTX had nothing to do with FTT tokens, so they were allegedly completely solvent up until the day of the collapse.
right, but at this point,
At this
if they were
point,
able to sell all the tokens, you're still not getting your money back. Like if I put $100 into it, at this point, if I were to turn around and be able to sell it,
yeah.
then nobody's going to give me $100 for it.
Yeah.
They're gonna be giving me dollars, pennies on the dollar.
Oh yeah, yeah. So, I mean, both the companies are. It's like there's no turning back at this point. Sam still
Right.
clings to that, but it's like, yeah, it sucks for. I don't know. Even if he's being completely honest, it's like it's a little bit too late to argue that point at this point. So it's kind of just not great for anyone involved.
So when he when he decided to, was he ever given a plea deal? Like, did the government ever come to him and say, "Hey,
No, talked to Sam like regularly throughout house arrest and throughout all of those months. He said they never approached him. They never gave him a plea deal.
well,
And he even said to me, though, he was like, I don't even think I would take one because he was like, I don't think I think Sam genuinely doesn't feel he meant to harm customers. So in that way, in his mind, he doesn't feel he's guilty, even though, I mean, obviously with the evidence, it's like, obviously you committed crimes, but he was like, I don't think they're going to give me anything reasonable. And he was like, so I wouldn't take anything under a few years on house arrest. Like that's how innocent he
oh
felt.
my God."
I know, and I was like, Sam, like I know that you probably didn't set out to hurt people, but like, come on, dude. Like, if I were you, I would take 10 years in prison. Like, it's not looking so good for you.
Wow. Like, did you follow Elizabeth Holmes' trial at all?
I didn't follow it closely, but I'm aware of like the general contours and that she ended up getting like what, 12 years or something,
Yeah, I think it's 12 or 13 years. I want to say 13, but I could be wrong. I'm wrong
something
all the
like that.
time. I mean, and listen, to me, the amount of money, okay, even though the dollar amount is wrong, it is vastly less than Sam's or than
Yes.
SBF. Um, Elizabeth Holmes went into it knowing it was a fraud, lied from day one to
Yeah.
her investors. She
Yes.
consistently knew what she was doing wasn't working, and misled tons of people, and then intimidated people the entire time. So the
Wow.
idea that, and then never accepted responsibility.
Yeah.
The idea that she then turned around and got 13 years is insane. So
Yeah.
for me, him thinking, Sam thinking he's going to get, oh, they're going to offer me 10 years, or that he was going to get anything less, than at least, look, my prediction is 20 years. The
Yeah.
FBI agent I talked to said, what did she say? She said 15. I have a buddy who does legal work. He says 15. I have
Mm.
another buddy that does legal work. He says, I agree. I think he is probably looking at 20.
Mm.
Now,
Those seem like very optimistic takes. I mean, just from some people I've talked to, I mean, obviously he's facing up to 115, but I just from some people I've talked to, a lot of the stuff that he did at trial is certainly not going to help him. Like obviously testifying and taking the stand at trial might not help him. I don't think Judge Kaplan is his biggest fan because even before trial started, Sam was continually pushing the boundaries of his bail conditions, contacted a former employee, he used a VPN, he leaked Caroline Ellison's diary, which the judge saw as witness intimidation. So he just was already off to a bad start with the judge. And obviously him testifying and potentially if the judge perceives him as potentially having perjured himself, all these factors, I do wonder how they would play into the sentencing because before he had done or if he had not done any of those things, then those estimates might seem accurate. But now I'm a little bit concerned about his, how this sort of behavior might affect the judge's perception of him.
and he still has another trial.
And he has a second trial scheduled for beginning March 11th, and his sentencing is on March 28th.
Is that also federal? It's not
Yes,
federal. Oh, it
yes, it
is?
is federal. And yeah, so and it's even there the one big charge that he's facing in the second trial that everyone's excited about is the campaign finance charge about his political donations. So that like some people have said if that charge wasn't in there, I think that they would definitely throw out the second trial, but some people have said like since there's the campaign finance charge in the second trial, they might not want to throw it out. I
It
don't know if that's true or not.
seems like overkill, but
It does. It
but
does.
it's also a very, I was going to say, typically what they do is they will, they'll just say, look, we're not going to run two different trials. Like let's just do, I think it's called a Rule 11, where they combine the multiple indictments into, one jurisdiction and one trial. But,
Mm.
and then it also depends on the U.S. attorney if they're okay with that.
Yeah.
But because one is saying, hey, this is a financial crime, and this one is campaign, this is whatever,
The campaign
campaign
finance. Yeah.
finance. I was going to say bribery.
I
But yeah,
think there was a bit of the bribery in
yeah, I
the
think that's
second
the problem.
choice.
So,
Yes.
and what's so funny about that is that I've actually bribed a
Oh,
politician, and
that's fun.
yeah, well,
That's
yeah.
exciting.
And what's so funny about it too is that like when it was in the newspaper and everything, and then, and this was after I was locked up. This all came out. I mean, I was questioned about it prior to being locked up, but then when I was locked up, it came out. It's on the front page of the newspaper, and the politician that I bribed was like, "This guy's a liar. He's this." And then a year later, he gets indicted for another bribery charge, goes to trial, loses, gets 3 years in prison.
Oh my God.
So, but
Damn.
mine never happened because of statute of limitations. By the time they caught me, they couldn't indict him.
Lucky. Lucky.
Lucky him, not
Lucky.
me.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Not lucky
I was
you.
already locked up. So,
Damn. Oh,
but
yeah. Damn.
and listen, and mine was, well, no, mine was pretty blatant too, but it was nowhere. The dollar amount was nowhere near, what SBF is charged with.
Well, there was also so it wasn't even just U.S. politicians. There was another charge for bribing the Chinese government because
Right.
they had $1 billion in Chinese bank accounts, and the government just froze all their money, $1 billion. And they tried for over a year to do it the right way. They got lawyers involved and were trying to like get their hands on the money that they had in there. Weren't able to do it, and then ultimately they were given some wallet address and were like, if you send 100 million or so into this wallet, then they'll loosen up your funds. Which I'm gonna be honest, like if I had $1 billion that was trapped somewhere and I had to maybe some little, I'm like, hey, with Sam there, I'm like, there's no moral or ethical judgment on me there. I
No.
would have paid it to get a hold of $1 billion.
Well, first of all, it's free money. Like it's not like when you're dealing with that kind of money, and you're just it's almost like he's the Fed. He's just making up numbers. Like, oh, let's print, $100 billion, and you know, and that's pretty much what he's doing. Let's just borrow this much from this here, and we'll use that. Which it's all kind of just made up anyway. So, okay, so so found guilty, about to do another trial, or about to be
Yes.
have to sit for another trial.
Yeah.
So his
Potentially.
sentencing, I wonder if his sentencing will be pushed back. It's in March, right?
Yeah, yeah, I wondered that as well because the first trial took about 4 weeks, and I don't know how long the second trial would take. The first trial was 7 charges, this one's 5 charges, and yeah, the sentencing is scheduled for the 28th, so that only leaves 17 days in between the second trial and sentencing. So I'd assume that if they go through with the second trial, it seems like they would push it back, but I'm no lawyer.
Okay, so well, he's got a rude awakening when he goes to federal prison. Well, he's locked up right now anyway. So,
True, true.
he's,
He's at MDC.
yeah, I was gonna say uh obviously there is no internet. There's no, like, he's already got major problems. I'm sure
Is
he's,
there any like sort of where you have some basic access to like a couple websites, or is it just you don't get to touch a computer?
well, when no, he's not touching a computer. Not locked up in that. Like right now, he's found guilty. So right now, I think he might be in the BOP's custody. He doesn't move, by the way.
Hmm.
Like he's still probably sitting in the same cell, and somebody just said,
Yeah.
okay, he's no longer in the U.S. Marshals holdover. He's now in the BOP's custody.
Oh,
So, and you get different privileges, but I doubt any of that's going to change for him.
okay.
So, but when you're actually in a prison, you have access to a computer, but it's only for the purposes of downloading music
Oh,
and what else? Being able to monitor your commissary account, monitor how many true links, which are minutes, right, on your phone that you can use. You get roughly about 300 minutes um, a month. So that's about 10 minutes a day you can use. You can
uh-huh.
only use the phone for 15 minutes anyway.
Oh.
And then you get to use it's the
Wait, so do you mean like to make phone calls, he can only use the phone for 15 minutes at a time?
yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And how many phone calls does someone get?
Well, I mean, depends on how long you talk. You can use up to 300 minutes. So if he
Okay,
were to,
right, right.
right. So if he were to call 4 people a day for 15 minutes, he could maybe go 5 days and then he'd just
Wow.
be out. You're not calling anyone.
Wow.
You can email people through the CoreLinks system, right? I think their side is called TrueLinks. The out here, I think it's called CoreLinks.
Uh-huh.
So they can email you, but it's like they email you to the website, and then I have to out here go to the website to read their email. So
Oh,
it's like checking in. You're going to a separate website. They're not emailing you. You can get a
right,
notification. They'll say, "Hey, if you go to the CoreLinks website, there's an email,"
right.
and he can email me, and the emails take about 45 minutes to an hour
Mhm.
to go back and forth.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is that because is there someone monitoring every email back and forth? Is that what it is?
So, I can't imagine that everybody's is being monitored, but they do run it through some kind of some kind of software to determine, like if you're saying the word terrorist or bomb or
Right,
gun
right,
or escape or something.
right,
And
right.
they take stuff like that very seriously. I mean, there was a guy in prison who got like 3 years. He's at a low. And so he's at the low, calls his dad, and his family owned a large construction company, which is how he got in trouble.
Mhm.
And he got like whatever it was, 3 or 4 years. I forget exactly what it was. But he calls his dad after a couple of days, says, "Hey, I'm here." And he was like, "Oh, okay. How you doing? You doing okay?" "Yeah, yeah." And he goes, "Yeah." He said, "How you doing?" "Oh, I'm good. I'm good." And the guy said, "Hey," he said, "how big's the rec yard out there?" "Oh, it's pretty big." He said, "Yeah." He said, "Because I was thinking about taking the helicopter over there." He's like, "I can land in the helicopter, pick you up. We can go out for lunch." Like you
Uh-huh.
joking around, right? And they're
Right.
laughing about it. The guy, within a few hours, he was locked up, thrown into the shoe, and transferred to like a medium or a pin,
Oh,
and stayed there the whole time. And even though
oh,
it was clear that it was a joke, they
yeah.
don't think it's like going on a plane and joking about a bomb.
Oh God,
You don't
that's
do it.
scary.
It's not funny. There's no joking. I get you think it's fun.
Oh,
It's not. You know what I'm saying? And that's just how they feel, and that's it. So don't even
yeah.
play. So
Oof.
yeah, it's serious. So they monitor your stuff, and also that costs money. Everything across the board costs money, but it's not going to bother him because he's always going to have people putting money on his books. But you can also only put so much money on someone's books.
Oh,
So let's say I want to go to commissary. I can only borrow or buy, and it depends on which institution you go to. They're all different. So people that are watching this, some guys will be like, "That's not true. You can spend $420 a month." Okay, everyone's different. So it's like you could spend, let's say, $75 a week. So
mhm,
you can go to commissary once a week. You can
mhm.
spend, let's say, 75. It might be $100. You know, 75 or 85 or whatever the commissary allows you to spend. But within the month, you can only spend up to, let's say, 375 or 410, whatever it comes to. And that's it. So if
Wow.
you're thinking, "Oh, well, I can buy lots of stuff and no, you can't." If you're thinking, "Oh, I can talk on the phone all day long," no, you can't. And that 15-minute phone call, by the way, after you make it and you hang up, you don't get to make another call for an hour.
Oh,
Right.
wow.
Which really gives you just enough time to get back in line.
Oh God.
You gotta wait.
Oh my God.
More people make calls, you're back in line, you make a few phone calls, or you make up your phone call, you might as well start over again. And
Nightmare.
oh, listen, it's rough. I mean, and there's
It's,
no even the email, there's no spell check.
yeah.
There's no, I'm a horrendous speller. It's
Yeah.
horrible.
Oh
So,
God.
I need spell check.
Yeah.
What else?
Ooh,
Yeah,
that's interesting.
he's going to most likely what he will do. He's never been talked to the way he's being talked to right now.
Do you
I
mean by
guarantee.
other inmates or do you mean by the
Oh
guards?
no, there's just the staff, the guard.
Yeah.
The guards are talking to you like, but they might. Some of them will probably treat him kind of like a celebrity. You know, they'll probably be a little bit polite, but other ones will just treat him like he's a dog. Some inmates will be kind of, you know, they'll feel bad for him, and some of them are probably looking up to him for all the wrong reasons. Um, I would say, you know, once he's moved, so if you get over 20 years, and that's remaining. So let's say if you get 20 years, you only immediately they give you good time. So he'll have to serve 17 years on a 20-year sentence, right?
Oh.
So they would allow him to go to a low security prison. Now, if he gets, let's say he gets 30 years, they'll calculate gain time, but that gain time means he's going to do probably 26 years and he's going to go to a medium security prison and he's not going to enjoy a medium security prison.
Oof.
It's like a real prison.
So what
Like
would the difference be? I mean, the basic difference for someone who doesn't know too much about the different sorts of prisons.
it looks like a real prison. Like there's two tiers, you know, when you walk into the unit and there's that, you know, that whatever you want, that balcony thing that goes all the way around. And, you know, you have a 2-man cell. Some of them are 3-man cells. And by the
Oof.
way, most of these are cells that were designed for one person.
Oh,
And so then halfway through construction in Coleman, the facility I was in, they decided, oh, you know what? 2-man. By the time they were finished with it, they started making 3-man cells.
oh my
You got
God.
3 men in a cell designed for one. It's horrible. You're in the
Wow.
bunk bed, like it's a 3-man bunk bed. It's like you're sleeping in a submarine.
Oh my God.
Uh,
Oh,
and there's a door, you know, they close the door, bam, they can feed you through the door. There's a toilet and a sink. So you're going to the bathroom in front of other guys. There's no divider.
oh,
Oh, it's horrible. It's
oh
horrible.
God. Do you have any privacy? How about the showers? Any privacy?
You have you have a little door you can close. Like there's a little door, you know, you can see like probably from your knees down and probably from your shoulders up.
Oh,
Um, uh,
oh,
and that's at the medium, and the medium's a much tougher place. That's where you have guys that they do home invasions. These are guys that do. These are serious guys. They've done bank robberies. They've kidnapped people. They're big time drug dealers. They've harmed people. Like there are people there that
oh,
have life sentences. You know,
oh.
they've murdered people. Your more violent criminals are not going to probably get to a low. Some of them do.
Okay.
You
Yeah.
know, so if you got 30 years and you've done 10 years in a pen and 10 years in a medium and you've got 10 more years left or so, you'll probably go to a low as long as you haven't had been any problems. You know, guys get stabbed in the rec yard. Guys get hit with locks. There's fights. Like I've never seen so many fights. But if you're respectful and you don't run up bills, you don't borrow from anybody, you're respectful to everybody, and you keep your head down, you get a job, he probably could not have any problems. Now the problem with him is everybody knows he's filthy. They're still looking at him like he's filthy rich.
Yeah. Yeah.
Most likely what happens is somebody approaches him and says, look, you know, if you start putting money on my books, you know, me and one or two other guys' books, whatever, and it won't be a lot. It'd be $100 or something, $100, $200, but of course it's Sam Bankman-Fried, so probably $300. Let's say $200, $300 a month on one or two guys' books, and nobody will ever bother him.
Oh,
You know,
that seems like a fair trade.
it does seem fair.
Because I mean, he's like the nerdiest guy I've ever
I,
met. He's not intimidating or he's not aggressive or whatever. So I'm just
I
like,
hear
I
you.
don't know how he's gonna do in prison in a medium or I don't know what's above a medium. A pen is
A
pen the
pen, yeah. So, oh,
and
he can't
that's
go to
the
a pen. He
okay.
can't go to a pen.
Okay.
It would be devastating for him to go to. Listen, even a medium, like he luckily he probably I'm sure he doesn't realize this, but going to being locked up before he goes to a prison, he's right now getting a lot of schooling on how to behave. You
Okay.
know, what to talk about, what not to talk about. They'll actually a lot of guys will respect him because you know they'll think he's, you know, it's a scam and wow, what an amazing scam. You're so smart. They'll have super respect for him in that way. And then some guys will respect him too because he went to trial. He didn't plead guilty. He didn't go in and he didn't testify against people. He didn't. Guys will respect that. But
Mm.
for the most part, how could I put this? On a scale from 1 to 10 of masculinity, out here in the real world, I'm probably a 4 or 5. I'm not the most masculine guy. Five
Uh-huh.
foot six.
Mhm.
I don't play sports. I don't hunt and fish. I couldn't talk to you about sports. I don't, that's just not. I'm not that guy, right? In prison, I'm a 1, maybe. That's if I throw some bass in my voice, like, "What's up, man? What's up? How you
Oh
doing?" Like
God.
it's like and I'm still a 1. I'm a little tiny. I'm a soft white guy.
Yeah.
He's not going to do. Like
I
guys are
feel
going to
like
be coming up to him.
Sam is a 1 in the real world.
I know.
So,
That's what I'm saying. It's
oh,
it's bad. Like he's gonna. There are going to be guys asking him, "Hey man, come, let me talk to you in my cell." Now, luckily, I was, I already understood. Like guys was, "Hey man, let me talk to you in my cell for a minute." I immediately said, "Why?" "Well, I just want to talk to you real quick." "Why?" "Let's talk out here." "Oh, well, you think something's going to happen? If I don't go in your cell, I don't have to find out, bro. What's up? What do you need?
oh
What are we
God.
doing?" And then they realize, he's a little more savvy. I can't get him in my
Right.
cell. I can't. And I'm
Yeah.
not saying that I'm not saying
I
it
don't think
would,
Sam is very savvy, and I don't think he like would talk back to people in a way that would be maybe respectable. I feel like he's quite timid, and even like when I posted something that got him in trouble about the political donations, and I was even like, Sam, are you mad at what I did? And he like can't even tell me that he's upset at me. He was just like, it's okay. Like I just don't. I've never seen him get sort of aggressive or anything like that. So I'm just like,
no,
he's not going
same.
to do so well.
Most likely what he'll do is he'll teach like GED, or he'll
Mm.
teach a crypto course or something. And although that's comical, I my charges bank fraud, and it's all related to real estate fraud. I taught the real estate
Wow.
course in prison for 10 years
Wow.
in the medium and the camp
So do you actually
with our
get money
below.
that you get to keep if you do one of these jobs, or is it more just like a hobby? Does it go towards your time, your good time, or whatever? What is?
So when I did that, okay, so if you teach, let's say GED, you actually get paid. And
Mhm.
now it depends on which grade you are. They have like a grade 1, 2, and 3. If you're grade 1, you make probably 120, $130 a month. If
Oh,
you're a grade 2, you make about 70. If you're a grade 3, you make about $20.
wow.
And I think I was a grade 1, and eventually I was a grade 2, but only for like a month or so. And
Wow.
then as far as the real estate course was concerned, which he could teach something like a business course, even though clearly he's not good at it. A business course or a crypto course that you're doing for free, but it's programming, right? Like if you take the course, you're programming, or if you're teaching it, you're programming. And now, wasn't like this when I was there, but now they actually give you time off of your sentence. So he can earn time off his sentence for
Hmm.
that sort of thing,
That's
so that's why
good.
he'll desperately be doing that.
That's good. I hope he does that.
He will. Listen, his biggest problem is he has the same basic problem. Well, I guess I was had a better mindset, but still I had a horrible mindset when I went in, which was, initially, for me it was arrogance and just narcissism, and I was just a complete jerk and thought I was so smart and so clever. And even though I realized what I'd done was wrong, I didn't want to admit that it hurt anybody or what was a big deal. I just kind of shrugged it off, and you're making a bigger deal about this than it really is. And then once you get in there and if you really start thinking about it, and you start realizing, took me a couple years to start to realize, like, no, I should be here. This
Mm.
is where I'm supposed to be. Like, they didn't make a mistake. Like, I
Mhm.
don't think they should have given me that much time, but I
Yeah.
definitely should have come here. Like, I have some issues. Like,
Mm.
and so my fear with him is that, he's gone to trial. And this happens with a lot of guys that go to trial that are clearly guilty. They go to trial, they go to prison, they complain the whole time they're there, they get out and they still feel like they shouldn't have gone to prison.
Yeah.
And then they typically get in trouble again, or they're just miserable. And
Yeah.
that seems like, and I don't know him, but like you have to own up to,
I
I
do.
fucked up.
Yeah, like I do feel like he really doesn't think he fucked up. I mean, he's definitely aware that what he's done has hurt a lot of people, and he's expressed like remorse over the fact that people were hurt, but I feel like he still thinks like but it was mostly bad luck. If like that CZ of Binance didn't do this, like then none of this would have happened. Like I feel like he feels remorse for or he feels pain for the people he hurt, but I don't think he really thinks he did something wrong.
Um, I mean, when he was at trial and he took the stand, he ever admit like this was a major mistake. Did he ever say he thought he never said like, hey, I like I don't even know how to say it. Like it's fraud. Like you're lying about things.
Right. Yeah, he never really said that. I mean, he expressed that he felt sorry that he ended up harming customers. I think that's like the closest he went to that, but he basically stuck to the argument. I mean, obviously this gets into kind of the weeds of finance and crypto exchanges, but he was like, "Well, FTX International had a margin trading program. We Alameda was just another customer of FTX, so we I thought that I was doing everything by the books." Basically, like he basically is still arguing that he thought that he was doing something that was fine, but he
But
hasn't
but
really.
but the girlfriend and the other people that were involved in the company testified that he clearly knew this was not correct.
There wasn't like a smoking gun of a message where they explicitly were like, let's use customer funds, but they basically called it FTX borrows, us borrowing money from FTX, which in Sam's mind, he's now sort of justifies and sticks to the argument that this was margin trading. We were borrowing, but other people borrowed money on FTX because they were margin trading. But obviously, like it doesn't make sense with the numbers. It doesn't check out. Like, but I don't think he's admitted that yet.
It doesn't
Um,
make sense when your customers didn't agree to it.
Exactly, exactly. So he's in a tough spot. I mean, found guilty on all counts within 4 hours of the jury deliberating. So,
So you understand that if he goes to trial on the second with the second trial and he loses, which he'll lose. Now when he gets sentenced, he's now in category 1 because he's now a convicted felon. It doesn't even matter, by the way, that he wasn't a convicted felon at the time. Does it? No, you're a convicted felon so now he's a convicted felon. So he's
oh,
already got a problem. The second problem he has is that the judge can decide I'm going to run these. He can say consecutive, he can
right.
say concurrent, he
Yeah.
could even do a mix. I've
Mm,
known guys that have split it. Like a guy got 4 years, and then he got another sentence that was supposed to be 4 years, and he split it, so the guy ended up with 6 years.
mm,
But the judge could say, okay, well, I'm going to run them both at the same time, and it still ends up being whatever the maximum sentence is, which is 20. Or he could just stack them and say,
oh,
yeah, you got 20 for this, assuming he gets 20. You get 20 for this, and you're getting 5 for this.
oof.
That was 25.
Yeah. Oh God. That's rough. I mean, I
He'll
don't know.
eventually go to he will eventually at some point, assuming he gets 20 years, let's say, he'll after 10 years, you can go to a camp. So eventually he would be able to go to a camp. God, he doesn't seem to be a rule follower. I was a very good rule follower when I was locked
Hmm.
up. I
Hmm.
really was just terrified. So
Hmm.
he he might be able to get a cell phone. Like if he could probably listen if he works it and you have a little bit of money and people that are willing to kind of move things around for you. I don't know. I can't imagine that he could tell his mom, I need you to put money on this guy's books. His mom would be like, nah, you're gonna get me thrown in prison. I'm not
Yeah.
doing like who's gonna help him with those things? Because it's
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah, that's rough. Yeah, I don't know if he could tell his parents that. That would be bad.
Yeah, think about it. Think about his aren't they like ethics professors or something? I mean,
They are.
they're
They're
like, I'm
they're
not
law professors. Yeah, and his mom wrote about ethics.
putting something on someone's books. Oh, you can't tell your mom. She's not gonna help you out.
Oh God. Oh
He's gonna
God.
have some problem. And then does he still have like friends and buddies or
That's the thing. I mean, he said that his closest friends were the people he worked with, and his closest friends were the star witnesses. So I don't think they're so close anymore. Like I think Sam and I got close, but I don't know whether or not he's willing to talk to me. I kind of consider him a friend, but I obviously think he's guilty, so I haven't necessarily been like vouching for his innocence out here. So I don't know if he'll want to talk to me or not, but I don't know. He didn't have very like when I was visiting him throughout house arrest, he said he didn't really have any consistent visitors other than Michael Lewis, who is the author of the the book about him going infinite. Um, Outside of that, I mean, maybe he had other friends, but they just weren't talking to him that in that period because of legal reasons. So I'm not really sure. Maybe he has a couple of other friends, but he didn't necessarily name anyone to me.
He's got problems.
Oh God.
Um,
I'd go visit him if he lets me.
yeah, you haven't reached out to him during the trial?
I sent him one letter in September, but his PR guy said that he isn't receiving letters. Like another journalist I spoke to said that she sent him a letter too, and apparently he's not receiving them, allegedly. I don't know if that's true. Yeah, but he
He's in
hasn't
federal prison. Yes.
contacted he hasn't contacted me. I mean, when you're waiting your sentencing, are you allowed to like be talking to people normally
Yeah,
or
absolutely. You're
well,
especially if they're you're going to get your mail. Like they'll mail you letters to the mail department, and then they call mail. Once a day, the guard comes in. He's mail call, and he'll yell out everybody's name. Hey, boom, so and so, Cox here. And
yeah.
then so and so and so and so. And then Cox, you got another letter. So
Yeah.
he'll definitely.
Well, someone on his team told me I can't talk to him, but I don't know if
Yeah,
that's more because they're worried about the legal reasons or
yeah, that sounds more like it. He didn't want to say, well, we'll tell him that you're not allowed. You're not getting letters. You're not allowed letters.
right,
Um,
right.
uh,
Oh,
what else? Okay, and
this is interesting to hear about.
yeah, he's. It's gonna be interesting. Uh,
Do you think he'll actually get beat up or is actual like prison rape? Is that a real fear?
in federal prison, I think if it was a pin, it's possible. I mean, that's possible. Really, be honest, it's probably possible in a medium too. If you're smart, then you don't get yourself in that situation.
Yeah.
Let me put it like this, and this sounds cruel, but if you get beat up or stabbed in prison, you probably had it coming. So, it's pretty easy. You
Okay.
be respectful to everyone. You don't gamble. You do not run up bills. And, you really should be okay. Like
Sam likes gambling.
that's a problem.
That's not
That will
good.
get you in a lot of trouble. And saying these little snide comments that he's said, to people, like, you get comfortable in there and you make a comment to somebody. Well, there's a lot of these guys are bipolar. You don't know what's going to set
Um,
them off. You might say something to them, they walk off, and 45 minutes later, they've built it up in their mind. Next thing you know, they come in your cell and they just attack you.
oh, that is
Right.
terrifying.
Right. So, and as far as rape is concerned, so it's typically what would happen. First of all, there's homosexuals in prison.
Yeah.
So that's not really, it's not like it's a necessity, right? Like it's got, like
Okay.
they'll find a gay guy that they just stick with, and they seduce him, or they pay him, they'll give him
Okay.
commissary, whatever. Uh, there are probably some guys that and they have a name for them, right? Like they're called like booty bandits.
Oh my God.
It's horrible. Um, and those guys enjoy pressuring someone, so they'll kind of intimidate you to the point. Then that's what they'll do. They'll intimidate someone, and that's probably, remember I told you the guy that told me like, "Hey, why don't you come in my cell for a second?"
Mhm.
That's probably what was going to happen, because there were two guys that were friends of his that were standing beside his cell. So I know when I walked in there, they were going to walk in and close the door. And now I'm in a cell with three guys.
Oh God.
Right. And so, at that point, they start to, they get close to you. Maybe they pull out a knife. They tell you, you want to make it out of here, and they pressure you. They scare you to the
Oh my
point
God.
where, yeah,
That's
that,
terrifying.
that seems like that's possible. Once again, it's probably a medium.
Okay.
My thought process is that the judge is going to say he's young, he's a jerk, but you don't, I can't give him more time because he's a jerk. He is young, he's stupid, he made some mistakes, he's arrogant. I'm going to give him 20 years. We'll see what happens with the politician one. Maybe the
Yeah.
politician one, they give him 5 years. Maybe he gets 25 years, but he's been locked up for a while. He may or may not go to a medium for a year. He'll keep his head down. He'll teach GED. Maybe he works in the kitchen. He'll be at a low, and he won't have really any problems at the low. They'll think
Hope so.
they'll be super excited to have him at the low.
Okay, that's good for him. He'll be a celebrity. Exciting. So what do people do to pass the time? Like what kind of like I don't know, do you watch movies? I don't know what people do in prison.
Yeah, they have multiple TVs, because the TVs are like babysitters. you know, like they can threaten to take them away from you, and everybody's like, no, you know, because you don't have like, it's not like in California, like I think in California, like some prisons, like you can have your own little TV in your cell. It's not
Yeah.
like that. You know, there's a big TV room, and they'll have like 3 or 4 TVs, and everybody has earphones. And then there's a couple smaller TV rooms, and they have them broken up. Like the black guys get like 2 or 3 TVs because the majority of these guys, probably 60-70% are black guys. In a medium, it's more like 80%. So then you have the Spanish guys have their own TV, and then the white guys have their own TV.
Mm.
And
Okay.
so, you know, and as much as they love the you know, prisons love to say, you know, they do everything in their power to make sure that things are desegregated. You know, there's no segregation, right?
Right.
Desegregated.
Mhm.
They don't, because the inmates do it themselves. There's nothing they can do.
Yeah.
And
Is Sam gonna have to join a gang?
no,
Okay.
no.
I'm
My
like,
wife,
that
my wife's here. She just snickered.
but that man is not gonna fit in any gang.
No, you don't want him in the gang. You
No
know,
one is gonna want him in a gang.
yeah. You don't want to. You don't. What's that saying? I don't want to be a member of any club that would have me as a member.
Yes,
They don't want him as a member.
yes,
So
yes.
what's he gonna do? Maybe he could do their books.
You
So
could do their books.
uh yeah, he's probably, you know, unless he gets something, unless I'm just completely wrong and he gets 75 years, in which case, God, I can't imagine he could go. I can't imagine they could justify sending him to a pen. But even then, they'd put him in protective custody because listen, it doesn't look good for the warden to allow someone to get hurt, especially someone that high profile.
Yeah.
The warden would be like, I can't, this guy's going to get killed on my
Right.
watch. I think what they do to pass time is they sometimes they have a movie room where you can go and you can basically sign up to get DVDs on DVDs. Remember DVDs? I don't know. They probably do still have DVDs there. Anyway, and you can watch movies. You know, you get to watch like one movie, maybe 2 movies a week if you schedule it right. You can walk the rec yard, you can work out, you can join a softball game, you can play, you know, all these things that Sam's not going to do.
Yeah, that man does not work out. He barely likes leaving that. He doesn't even like going outside.
Which
might be good for him in jail or
it
prison.
might be.
Maybe.
He can, you know, he's going to have so many. He's going to be going through legal proceedings for forever. I mean, if he's smart, he would get a prison job of some kind, and he would start doing people's legal work or something to pass the time. And it's a way to make money for inmates. Like some inmates just aren't going to do their legal work, but Sam's clearly a sharp guy. It'd take him a couple years to really know how to file the documents and write up legal work. And what he'd do is he would just crush multiple people's chances of getting any relief at all while he destroys their cases. But he'd learn a lot. Now, granted, you have to do all your time now because he didn't really know what he's doing, but he could learn on your case. You probably didn't have a chance anyway. So, and then some of these guys some guys will charge a couple $100. Some guys will charge $3,500. You know, some guys, like I know guys that they'll charge $3,000-4,000 in prison. That's insane.
Damn.
But they're also
make
really
some big
good.
bucks.
Well, it passes the time.
Yeah.
You know, what I did was I wrote guys' stories.
Yeah, that's cool.
So, you know, because I was just surrounded by these great stories. So
Yeah.
that really helped me, you know, with my time. And
That's good.
if he doesn't figure that out, well, first of all, he'll read the first couple of years, he'll probably read. He'll probably just like read books.
He hates books, but
Are you serious?
yeah.
But after a year or two, and once it sinks in, he's going to be there a while. Because it probably hasn't. It's probably slowly sinking in now.
Yeah.
He's still thinking, well, I'm going to get a couple years, and I've already done this much time. And if I do this and I do that, and in his mind, he's probably still thinking, I can be out of here in a few years.
Yeah, probably.
You know, I always have these guys in the comment section when they talk about all the money that he donated to politicians. Mm-hmm. They're always saying, you know, oh, well, he donated so much money to politicians, he's not going to get any time. But the truth is,
I get a lot of comments like that. No.
They all took off the moment he got indicted. The moment it looked bad for him,
totally
stopped answering his calls.
Totally. If anything, I feel like wouldn't that hurt him? I feel like now people like these politicians need to show that they're not corrupt, and like I feel like if anything, it's gonna hurt him.
Right. But, you grow up and you think you know how things work. And then you get into, let's say for me with lending, um, once you get into the system, you start realizing like, oh, wow, like this doesn't work at all. Like like people think it would work. Like in some ways it's extremely laxed.
Yeah.
And in other ways, it's like, there's no way around this.
Yeah.
Some people think it's almost like a handshake and, I know a guy that knows a guy, but that's not what it is, and people would say, oh, well, you want to walk in like in a nice suit and this and that. I don't care if the person walks in a moo and slippers and doesn't look like they've taken a shower in a week. I don't care. Do you have good credit and W-2s and pay stubs? Do you make enough money for the loan? Do you have a down payment? Oh, I'm getting you a loan.
Yeah.
I don't care if I don't care if you have face tattoos. So, there's just, and I think that's probably what happened. He probably donated a bunch of money. He was hoping to get some favorable, policies and laws changed that was going to help him continue his scam. It didn't. And then he probably thought, well, it'll still help me with my case. And then his lawyers got involved and his lawyers were like, oh, Sam, what are you doing?
Not good.
None of that's going to work.
Yeah.
But he probably thought it would. So.
Oh God. He's not in a good position right now.
So,
my God.
So my other question is, so what are you doing on your channel?
I mean, for the past month, I went to every single day of his trial. I was covering it. It's almost bittersweet because I'm like, oh God, this was my whole life. It was almost my whole life for like a year because I don't actually like fully live anywhere. So I just do little sublets. And when I was interviewing Sam, I moved over to San Francisco so that I could continue interviewing him over his house arrest. Um, and then I'm in New York for the trial. And now I'm like, oh, it's kind of a big existential moment where I'm like, I don't know what to do from here because I didn't set out with my YouTube channel to do anything specific, and I've cared about Celsius because I had money in it. I cared about FTX and Sam since I was talking to him, but yeah, now I'm a little bit I need to rethink everything now. We'll see.
What about the next trial?
I'm planning on covering the next trial in March. We'll see if it happens. I'll definitely attend his little sentencing hearing. But I don't know. I feel like more people want me to like do more crypto fraud related things, and I'm open to it. But yeah, it's only been like a couple weeks out of trial, so I'm still sort of thinking through what to do. If you have ideas, you can feel free to throw them
Well,
at
I
me.
mean, the crypto thing, if that seems to be your niche, with the channel, if that's what you think it is, then what about just interviewing other guys? Like, I mean, let's face it, you could interview, someone like it. Maybe, I don't know if CoffeeZilla is how much he's going to do, but he'd do at least one interview. So, you do an interview with him, you do, there's many scams, related to crypto that you could go through. And not only scams, like I've talked to actually a couple of cyber guys in the last couple of weeks, and it was all related to crypto. Parts of it was related to crypto scams, but it was the North Koreans state-run, divisions in North Korea where they actually stole. How much did they steal? I'm going to say 300 million in Bitcoin. Now,
Damn.
they didn't keep in mind, because you can only get it out through an exchange. They were shifting it around, and it's being followed. Obviously, it's being tracked. The problem was they ended up trying to launder it through a legitimate, oh God, what I just said it. It was how do you get the money out again? It's
Exchange.
an exchange. What? God, I just went blank. So, so they went to a legitimate exchange, because some are questionable. I only know this because this is what the guy told me. So he said for some reason they dumped almost all of it into a legitimate one. And he was like, and I don't know why they did that.
Yeah.
Because what happened was it got dumped there, and before they could shift it to multiple bank accounts, they were contacted by the investigators that were on it, and these are private investigators. These aren't even this isn't even like the FBI or the government. And they were contacted by them and said, look, this is what's going on. This is the problem. This is what's happening. We're asking you to please freeze the account. They froze it immediately. So
Wow.
these guys only made $40 million. Now, 40 million is a lot of money, but it was North Korea. And this is something that this is part of, they love to throw the whole, it's helping to fund their nuclear program. You don't know where that money's going. It's going into the coffer, whatever. The point is that was a super, that's something that's also well, it's Bitcoin, but it's also
No, yeah, that's interesting.
yeah, and there's
Yeah, I need to
lots
look
of
into
them
more
like that.
stories like this. I need to
There's
find a
tons of stories like that.
new fraudster to hang out with.
Well, and you've already got 40,000 subscribers.
Yeah, it's been fun.
So you already have kind of an audience. Like you could definitely do that. And then think about it. You could turn that into what's the next one that goes under. Maybe you go to that trial. Maybe you
Yeah.
something to think about.
And I need to do something longer form with all my Sam interviews because I didn't post many of them and I didn't want to get subpoenaed by the DOJ.
Yeah,
So
that's
eventually I need to
interesting
figure out
too.
what to do with all of that too. So I have a lot of thinking to do,
I
but
think
it
that
was
would
a
have been
fun little ride.
that could have been cool if you got subpoenaed.
I would be terrified. And I'm like too poor to
You didn't do
pay for
anything
a big.
wrong.
I know, but it's just terrifying. And I also was like, would I have to testify against Sam? And like,
That'd be great.
that sounds fucking terrifying. Maybe it would have been fun.
I mean, yeah, I think the difference is if I was in your position, I'd never been through the system and dealt with the FBI and Secret Service and U.S. attorneys and stuff, I would be terrified. But being through the system, like now, I'd be like, yeah, of course, that'd be great. Like to me, I'd be like, think about the publicity I'm gonna get. That's another 100,000 subscribers.
Oh my God.
They're not
Imagine.
gonna. You haven't done anything wrong. You went and interviewed him. What did you do?
This is true. This is true. Maybe next time. Maybe I can get subpoenaed.
Yeah.
I hope not. If the DOJ is watching this, I hope I don't get subpoenaed. I don't want to get
Cool.
subpoenaed.
Listen, I've had guys that have read my articles that I've written on guys. I've had FBI agents call me and say, "Hey, look, I read this article. Here's what's going on. Did the guy ever say this? Do you know this? Do you know that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I know this. Call this guy. Talk to this guy."
Oh my God.
And then that ends up being more and more content for your channel.
That's fun. That's fun. Maybe I did it the wrong way.
Well, I mean, you're definitely on the right path now.
It's been fun. It's been a fun little journey. Very unexpected.
Well, can you think of anything else? Tell me, is there anything else I didn't cover that we didn't talk about? I mean, I'm sure Tyler will tell me. My booking agent will be like, you didn't mention this. You didn't mention that.
Yeah, what did Tyler put it? He put a bunch of stuff in the email, but I didn't look at it too closely. Let's see. I haven't pulled it up.
I read the whole thing, but he also asked me to ask stuff that I have no idea about.
That's fine. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's like the whole thing is over now, so it's like I guess it's all sort of out there.
I can't believe that he talked like he went on like his little media campaign after he was, extradited back to the U.S. and was on house arrest, and he's going on all these shows. And what are you thinking?
He can't shut up. And I think I feel like I wouldn't be surprised if he does the same thing all over again, like once he's able to start talking to people.
His lawyers had to go nuts.
I know. Because in one of my interviews, I was asking him what his lawyers thought about it. And he was just like, I told my lawyers to go fuck themselves. They don't know what they're talking about.
God.
He does think he's the smartest guy in the room, and he thinks everyone else doesn't really know what they're doing.
Well, that's they're gonna teach him. They're gonna teach him a lesson. And what's even worse is that going to prison with that attitude is just going to make it that much worse. Like nobody wants to hear you complain. Nobody wants to hear you say, I'm innocent. I shouldn't be here. Nobody wants to hear that.
Yeah.
And that's not going to do you any good. Like your best bet is to go to prison, realize you should be there, and work on just the person you are and try and be a decent person and pass your time and get out and try and turn it into something.
Yeah. I hope he does. I remember you told me he sees something like 10 to 20 years in prison as the same as life in prison. And I'm like, that's not the same. Yeah.
First of all, if he programs, he could be out in about 14 years.
What do you mean programs like
So as soon as you remember, I said, as soon as you go in, they calculate your good time. So if he gets 20 years, he's looking at 17 years.
Okay.
Right off the rip. You just went from 20 to 17. That's if you're good behavior. You have to be a real screw up to lose good time.
Okay.
And even then, the way that you lose it is like, they'll take away 10 days, 20 days. Like if you stab somebody, you might get 54 days taken away. Like it's
He won't
difficult to
stab
lose.
anyone.
No, no. Um, but so let's assume he's going to be a decent, person. He may try and get a cell phone or something, but even then it's 50, it's the max I think they can give you is take away is like 50 days or something. Okay. So assuming he's good with the 17 years. So you got 17 years. If he programs, he can get up to, I forget how many days. It's like, it ends up being, it's a chunk of time. I don't want to say 15 days a month. It's like 12 days a month or something. So if he programs, which means every quarter he takes at least one program or he teaches a class. And these are called ACE courses that are called adult continuing education courses. So if he teaches one or takes one, he gets programming. You also get programming if you just have a job. So if you can get a job doing anything. You could sweep up the compound. You can work in the kitchen, washing dishes. You can, because let's face it, there's nothing on the compound that is going to work. There's no jobs for someone like him. So maybe he can teach GED or do something silly like work in the rec yard, passing out equipment. But regardless, you get time off. So, but the maximum you can get is something like 12 days or 11 days a month, something along those lines. So it ends up being, with good time and programming, 20 years ends up being 14 years. You can also get a year off for the drug program. So if he takes a drug program and says, I have an issue with drugs, if he's smart, when he does what's called his pre-sentence report. So before he goes to sentencing, the Department of, the U.S. Attorney's Office? No, the DOJ. The DOJ is going to send a probation officer to interview him. They're going to interview him. And one of the things they're going to ask about is, his family, his upbringing, all that. One of the things they're going to ask him about is, do you have a drug problem? Have you ever had problems with drugs? He needs to say yes, no matter what. Oh, of course I do. I'm hooked on this. I'm taking this. I'm taking that. Because then they will recommend to the judge that he should take what's called the RDAP program, the residential drug program, or residential drug program, right? Yeah, residential drug program. So they'll say he should take that. But if you pass it, it's a 9-month program, and if you pass it, you get a year off.
Oh, that's good. So
now he's down to 13 years. He can get up to, you can actually get up to like a year or two now, but no halfway in a halfway house. But there's no way he's getting 2 years in a halfway house, because they say like you can. The problem is he can't, because halfway houses are so full. But let's say he gets a year off. So now he's down to like 12 years. He's already done 6 months in jail, let's say.
Yeah.
So, they're going to put him on a bus, maybe a plane. They're going to fly him. Maybe they'll put him someplace local, probably so that he can be close to his lawyers and his family. They could also be upset with him, and they could fly him all the way to Miami, and he'll be in Miami. Like they could get upset with him and say, oh, you know what? We're going to fly you out to, Texas. But either way, it's 12 years. And right now, I can tell you right now, 12 years is an eternity to him.
Yes.
But he's at the beginning, and in 2 or 3 years, you lower your expectations of life. And that sounds horrible, but it's really not. It's not horrible. He'll, after 2 or 3 years and his expectations of life have been lowered on what he wants out of life, he will find comfort in having a good conversation, a good book, talking to your mom on the phone, having they've got fried chicken tonight. I love fried chicken. Like even though for the most part the food's not great, but periodically.
And he's vegan, so he's going to struggle.
That's gonna be out.
It's not going to go well.
That's going to be over. No, that you can be vegan, but he's probably going to realize like I don't
know. Apparently, he spent the first few months in jail only eating bread and water, and he lost a lot of weight. He used to be a little bit tubby, and he was really he looked almost gaunt during trial. So
maybe he'll stick with it.
Maybe he'll be ripped.
I think after a few years, he'll realize I can do this. Like,
Is that what most people feel after a few years of prison, or do some people just never come to terms with it?
I mean, obviously, there's some people that never come to terms. I knew guys that, and honestly, I knew a guy named Jason Weeks. Jason Weeks, if you said, Jason, how long been locked up? He'd say 12,214 days
Counting on?
and 11 hours. I mean, it was
Oh,
like, and he didn't say it like it was funny. He was serious. He was angry. He was bitter. And Jason Weeks made his own time really hard.
yeah.
And nobody really wanted to hang out with him. Like, he was extreme. Listen, and super bright guy. I mean, I'm not
Yeah.
saying he's not. He was a bright guy that just made his time harder than it needed to be, and was not someone that you wanted to hang out with. Like, I would hang out with him because he was smart, but I'd hang out with him for 20 minutes, and after 20 minutes, I'd be like, "This is why we don't hang out." That's right.
I have friends
Okay,
like
Jason,
that. Yeah.
I'll see you around. And I'd leave, and then 2 weeks later, I'd see him, and I go talk to him for 20 minutes. I'd be like, "Oh,
Again, every time.
you always get me." And I leave. So it's just not smart. It's not smart
Yeah.
to complain the whole time. And
Yeah.
the big problem too is he's probably going to have a couple, 2-3 years of appeals. So that
Oh,
doesn't really help him.
yeah.
I'm saying mentally,
Mentally.
he's going to keep thinking, I'm going to
I
win.
could get out.
They're going to come to me. They're going to offer me something. They're going to give me this. They're going to give me that. They're going to.
I feel like he will get he's like an overly optimistic guy. Like I remember when I was asking him in house arrest, I was like, what do you think your odds are of getting out of this scot free? And he was like, there were moments where he said, maybe like a little under 50% chance. And I was like, man, that is so not like even just knowing the conviction rate in like even just knowing the conviction rate, I'm like, that's just statistically unlikely. Like even if
No,
I thought you were innocent, which I
don't.
don't, yeah,
Listen,
so I'm just
if
like,
he was innocent, he's got about an 80% chance of being found guilty.
exactly, exactly. So
No.
I just feel like Sam during these appeals, I imagine him being overly optimistic and being like, maybe this is the time I'm gonna get out of this. And actually, the same thing happened when he was thrown in MDC. I think his lawyers did up until the date of his trial, like continually try to get him out. And I feel like he probably clung on to that hope of potentially getting out of jail. And I assume it'll be the same in prison. So that's not great for his mental state perspective.
Oh man.
Oof.
He needs to join a softball team and try and get a 2-man cell as soon as possible.
Oof.
Because he's going to be there a while.
Uh-huh.
Oh my
Okay. I know he plays paddleball. Are there any games? The guy is like he
God.
loves games.
Oh,
Are there games he
are
can
you
play?
serious? These guys are professional game players. There's everything from Risk to Monopoly. They've got
Oh,
shuffleboard. They have
oh,
volleyball courts. They have racquetball courts. They have
oh.
handball, softball. What else?
That's good.
Soccer. Right?
Okay, he'll
Listen,
have some
they
games to
have
play.
they have a massive, massive rec yard. You have to understand if you keep these guys entertained, we can get less staff. We don't need as
Wow.
many people to watch them to control them. So
Right.
give them
That
soccer
makes
balls, give them
sense.
this, pool tables. Do you want to learn how to do leather craft? Do you want to learn how to paint
That makes
plastic?
sense.
Right.
That's good. Okay, that's something for him to do. Okay, because yeah, he once sent me his Amazon purchase history, and like he was buying a lot of board games. So if they have board games, I'm sure
Oh
he'll
yeah.
be happy. But he likes video games. Do they have video games in prison? No.
Well, I mean, the problem in federal prison, as far as when I was there, the answer is no. But since I left, like when I got there, they came out with MP3 players,
Oh.
and yeah, my wife just said he could get a cell phone. I said that earlier. I said he'll probably get a cell phone, but which is contraband. He'll get in trouble if he gets it. But so let's say maybe he gets a cell phone, or he could, they have like pads now, right? Like iPads now, but they're not iPads,
Oh.
like you say that, I say that it's not an iPad. But it's their version of an iPad. So
Like
he'll
the
probably
prison gives them these, or do you mean like as contraband he could get his
no,
hands
no,
on?
no. He can get one like the prison gives it to you.
Oh, that's
And
nice.
but I don't really know necessarily what, like, I think you might be able to watch I know in county jails and stuff they do. And I know they were introducing them into federal prisons, but it depends on what federal prison. I just don't know. And even then, I'm not sure what are they going to have games on it? Are they going to have, listen, there were guys in federal prison when I was locked up. Real quick, I ended up going through a private prison when I was being moved, when I first got locked up. And they were housing California inmates in Oklahoma, not Oklahoma, Mississippi, in Mississippi, I forget, but it was a private prison, and there was a wing where they had California prisoners. These guys had video games. They're wearing sweatsuits. They're watching TV. Like, we would walk by and you can see them. There's a huge window as you're walking by the hall, and guys are looking and they're like, this is insane.
It's pretty nice.
Why would you leave? Like, this is what. So I don't, but it's pretty strict in federal prison. He's going to have, but like I said, once he realizes, hey, my appeals are out, I'm probably going to be doing all this time, and he'll always be doing some kind of an appeal, and he'll always have that kind of hope. But at some point you're like, yeah, I hope it works out, but I'm probably going to do the next 10 years in prison.
Yeah.
He'll probably be in a better frame of mind.
That makes sense.
Which it sucks, but
No, it makes sense. Like, it makes sense to not have that like constant hope over your head. Oof. But he told me that the main thing he would miss is internet. So I mean, I guess sounds like that's not going to happen for him.
No, I don't. Something would have to change.
Well, and just last question. I remember someone telling me that he could end up in a prison anywhere in the U.S. Is that true? Do you know how that works?
Absolutely.
Okay. I didn't know. I thought that I figured it would be in New York, but no.
I don't know. I can tell you, I know multiple guys that lived in California. All their family was in California. They were indicted in California, tried or pled guilty in California, and were in the same prison I was in Florida.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, and I mean, that happens all the time. All the time. People
I
are
didn't know that.
5 states away, 10. They'll tell you their policy is to keep you within. Is it 200 miles, 300 miles?
What I thought.
Yeah, they try and keep you as close, but let's face it, they can't do that.
Close to family,
but close to where your residence is, yes, or your family. Like, but they can't do that. Like some states have lots of prisons in them, and then some states have 1 or 2.
Yeah.
So how do you do that if you got 5 prisons in one state and 1 in another one? I mean, you can't. And
do they just choose kind of randomly, just based on where there's where there's availability?
That it's partly that, and it's partly, are you close to your relatives, and your security level. That's another thing that my wife was just saying. She was, that, let's face it, if they have very few pens.
Yeah.
So if you're from Iowa, and you can't go to, maybe you can, and also, where were your co-defendants? Lots of guys have what they call separatees on them. So you testified against me, or you cooperated against me, and now we have a separatees. So they ship me to your prison, and they put me in the shoe because they go, oh, wait a minute, one of your co-defendants is here. You can't stay here. And then they ship you to, imagine if you have a large case, and then they ship you to another prison. You would think they know that your co-defendants are here, here, and here, but they don't. They ship you there. You sit in the shoe while they figure it out, and they go, oh, yeah, we can't send you here either.
Interesting.
Or they'll ship you let's say you have to go to RDAP, the drug program. That maybe there's no RDAP at the low security prison or the medium or whatever you're at. There is none. So we're gonna move you to California, or we're gonna move you to Texas, or we're gonna move you, and you're like, that's 5 states away from where I live.
So it could just be anywhere. That's interesting. I didn't know that.
But like I said, I think they'll probably keep him close. They'll probably make an extra effort to keep him close to home. First of all, he's still got trials. He still has lawyers. He still has family. You can pay former BOP staff members. It's nothing. It's like $1,500 or $2,500 to make a plea to, I forget the name of the plea. Basically, they write up a whole thing where they basically make a plea to keep you and why they should keep you at this prison. His lawyers are going to make those calls. The judge is going to recommend he stay close to home. And they'll probably pay someone to make that effort. And the probation officer is going to also say that there's a good chance, let's face it, he's not some gangbanger from the projects. Yeah. He's got a bunch of people on his side rooting for him.
Yeah.
That carry, a lot of weight,
Hmm.
so
Okay. So likely around California. That's where his family is.
yes.
Okay, that's good to know. And then just other quick questions. So obviously right now he'll be interviewed for the PSR, the pre-sentence report. And once he does get sentenced, what is the process from there? Like they don't immediately just ship into prison, do they? Or like what's the timeline look
So,
like?
well, I think the problem with him is, and I did another interview and I didn't realize he had another trial. And
Mm.
I was like, oh, he'll be gone in 2 weeks.
Ooh,
He probably would be, unless it would have to be around like the holidays if it cost, and even then it'd only be like maybe another week. The problem is he has another trial.
right.
So no, they're going to probably transfer him or keep him in the U.S. Marshals holdover, or maybe the BOP. I don't know how that's going to work with another trial, but he's not going. Probably he's not going to go anywhere if he's got another trial. They're just going to keep him right there.
Yeah.
They're not
And
going to
then
move him to prison.
once he's sentenced and then the sentence comes out, like do they just it's 2 weeks usually, like until he gets into
Yeah,
prison? Hmm.
within a week or two, he may end up having to go to some kind of a processing center like Oklahoma City,
Yeah.
and so he might be shipped to Oklahoma City, and they kind of do a review or something. I mean, the worst case scenario, he's at the prison he's going to be at within 3 or 4 weeks
Okay.
maximum. Maximum.
Didn't know any of these things. This is as much me interviewing you as you
I was gonna
interviewing
say,
me.
I'm like you're asking me questions. The Oklahoma City prison or holdover, they call it like the holdover. It's connected to to an airport. So
Hmm.
they fly you in on Con Air, and it's a regular plane. It's not like the movie. They fly you in, and the whatever that thing is comes in and it hooks up to the plane, and you leave that. You walk through that hallway into the prison, and
Wow.
it's like something out of it's an Orwellian nightmare.
Oh
It's
my God.
you're all shackled together, chain way, and you're all your arms are at your waist. You got waist chains on. Your legs are shackled.
Oh
There's
my
a chain going from each inmate, and then you walk in, and then the guards, you stand. There's like probably 5 or 6 guards in a row, and you walk up onto this platform, and then they take the chains off you, and then you immediately go into a room that's covered with metal all the way around the room. So
wow.
it's all the way up the walls. It's diamond plated, and you go in this room and you stand there, and you might be in there for 3 or 4 hours. You can't sit down. There's too many. They pack you in.
Oh
Pack
my
you in.
God.
It's listen. It's
It's a movie.
absolutely. It's something you've never. It's like being in a movie, but
Yeah.
it's obviously it's not. And you. It's this surreal feeling like I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe this is happening. I mean,
Oh my God.
the whole
That's
time.
wild. Oh my God, that's crazy. You
Then
have
they
good stories.
yeah.
You've
Then
been
they give
through a
you.
lot.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Then they give you your room, and you'll be there for whatever 5 days, 10 days, 15 days, and then they're gonna send you to a prison. You're gonna be put on a couple of buses, and you might just stop at a prison at another jail or a holdover for a day. You'll sleep there that night. The next morning they cuff you up again, put you on a bus for another 5 hours. They do
Yeah.
it again, and within a few days, listen. He's never gonna have been through anything this horrible in his entire life.
Definitely not. He had a pretty charmed life.
Yeah,
I grew up in Stanford and just like had a good life. Oof.
but he'll listen. He'll have a new appreciation for I have a story that where I'll tell you, and then we can I'll let you go.
No worries.
The story is when I was locked up in the U.S. Marshals hold, basically like a county jail. I was waiting to be sentenced, and I was talking to this guy who just done. God, he done whatever. I don't know what it was, like 10 or 12 years in federal prison. And I think he still had a few more years to do in the state.
Okay.
Um, and I was just like, man, this is so, I was just like, I can't believe this is happening. And he said, I know, Cox, I know, I understand you're freaking out. Listen, he goes, there is going to be a time, and it's going to be a few years from now, but there will be a time. He said, you're going to go to prison, and there will be a time. He said, when you will be sitting around, and he by the way, he was telling me a story that somebody had told him. He said, you will be sitting around and you will be laughing and joking and doing something, and you are going to stop, and there will be a moment when you will realize, like, wow, this is great. These are great guys. I'm having a good time. This is great. What a great moment. And you've had those on the outside. You have those sometimes with your friends, right?
Yeah.
But when you're locked up and you have that moment, he said, you're going to think there's no place I'd rather be. And I went, you're out of your fucking mind, bro.
Yeah.
That's never going to happen.
Uh-huh.
Probably 3 years later, I was playing Risk with a bunch of guys,
Uh-huh.
probably 4 or 5 guys. This guy's invading this country. This guy had an agreement not to invade that country. He rolls the dice. He invades it. I can't believe we had an agreement. He's like, yo, bro, what am I supposed to do? I got to take Czechoslovakia, and we're laughing. There are people bringing us sodas. Like, they have guys that will walk around and sell sodas, and they're bringing a food, and somebody's like, yeah, give me a Pepsi. Yeah. And it's ice cold, and you're walking and you're laughing. And I remember I was laughing so hard. And I remember looking around at these guys and thinking, this is great. Like, this is great. These are great guys. And it hit me. I was like, oh my God.
Right.
Oh my God. Because that guy told me about his moment.
Yeah.
His moment was, they were standing around a burn barrel talking and shooting the shit one day. And he said, I had that moment. He said, and you'll realize it's going to be okay. I can do this.
Yeah.
And it was, and I was at the low security prison at that point. It was probably, I'd been there a year. I'd been locked up 4 or 5 years at that point. And I was like, this is going to be okay. So he'll, if he's lucky, he gets to that point.
Yes.
Because by the time I left, the last 3 or 4 years that I was, getting toward leaving prison, I was honestly genuinely okay. Like, I wanted to leave. You want to leave. You still want to live your life on the outside. It's better.
Yeah.
But you're okay.
Wow. That was a profound story. What a good.
I can't. My wife is going, tell her. I can't. I'll choke up. She said, tell her how when you left prison. So I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm so mad at you right now. Okay. So when I left prison, we were driving away, and I remember looking at the prison. Like, I'd never seen it from the outside. Right.
Yeah.
And I remember looking at the prison, and my brother said, man, I'll bet you're glad to, bet you're glad to be leaving that place. Something like along those lines. And I just started crying. And he was like, I know you're glad to be leaving there, but it wasn't that I was leaving. It was that, my best friends were there. And I knew how much I was going to miss them. You have it's called, survival guilt.
Yeah.
And I just remember being so upset and sad because I was leaving these guys that I just loved.
Yeah.
And listen, going into prison didn't really feel that way.
Yeah.
About really anybody. Like, I had a girlfriend that I was in love with at the time, but by the time I actually went into the prison, that was over.
Yeah.
And there were certainly no friends or anything that I missed.
Yeah.
But he will. Hopefully he has that moment, because God knows this guy's got a lot to figure out in his life, because he is a damaged, like, if I'm a damaged soul, he's definitely, at least I was lucky enough to know I should have been in prison, that I really made a series of horrible, horrendous mistakes in my life. And I'd harmed a lot of people.
Yeah.
He hasn't come to that realization. God, I hope he does.
Yeah.
Or he's gonna do some really, really hard time mentally.
Yeah. Oh.
I'm so mad at my wife right now.
No, that was a really good story, and it was like also like a very good end, because I'm like I had chills. It was good. I hope that for Sam and like anyone who's serving that long a sentence. Like, I hope so. Oh my God. That was good.
Hey, if you guys watched the video, I really do appreciate it. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe to my channel, hit the bell so you get notified of videos just like this. Leave me a comment in the comment section. Also, we are going to leave Tiffany's all of her social media links in the description box. I'm also going to leave her YouTube channel. Please go to her YouTube channel if you like this content and subscribe. And please consider joining my Patreon. It really does help me out. Thank you. See ya.